Welcome to Session 8.
We continue cracking the code to handling conflict in this session.
In the scripture it says, do not merely look out for your own interests, but also for the interests of others. The result of doing this is a commitment to finding a solution that meets both partners' interests.
Remember that there are two parts to resolving a problem. The first part is having a couple talk, and that's what you did in the previous session, digging deeper during disagreements. You first thought about the good in your partner's point of view, then you agreed on a time and place to discuss the problem using a soft approach, and then you had that couple talk where you expressed all your feelings, concerns, and desires about the issue, and you listened with empathy to your partners. So in a couple talk, you can go deeper and discover different feelings, more vulnerable feelings. And I'd like to give an example about a time when we had a situation that was very difficult for me to handle. And what we were doing was we were in Mexico. We had delivered some food to an orphanage, and we were coming back across the border, and we were stuck at the border because there were a lot of cars in line. And as
late at night, we're all tired. Yeah.
And as we drove towards the line, trying to find the end of the line, Don was driving, and he pulled into what he had thought was the end of the line. So we pulled in there, and then we heard beeping, a lot of beeping going on. And what became apparent was we had not gotten to the end of the line. We had cut into the middle of the line. There had just been a little break in the line, and behind us was about a mile of cars, a mile of angry people in cars, beeping and beeping. And so I started getting scared, and I started asking Don to do something about it. And so I said, quick, get out of line. There's people behind us.
And I'm trying to figure out what exactly is going on and the beeping, and I'm tired and I don't want to lose my space in line.
And I heard that beeping and got more and more concerned that somebody was going to come to our window and do something violent because we had cut in front of a big long line. And so I started telling Don again and again, do something, please, quick. Just turn on your left turn signal to show them that we're going to get out of line.
And our friend came, and who was in another car, and said, he came up to my window and said, Don, you cut in line, you're in the wrong place, that's why they're honking. And he's a real big guy leaning in and talking like that.
So then I realized that a mile of cars had seen what they probably figured was a stranger telling this guy to get out of line, and he was refusing. And I'm thinking, this is making us even more unsafe. So I pulled out all the stops. I pulled my last card I had, and I said, Don, just do it for me. Get out of line. And his response was? No. That shut me down. And usually I would have attacked, but something in me said, this is it. And I shut down. He thought for the next 3 or 4 hours I was sleeping, but I wasn't. I was closed off and shut down. So we drove home, and he realized that I was being more quiet than usual. So he said, I noticed something seems to be bothering you. Would you like to have a couple talk about it? Well, right then was not a good time. So I used my timeout signal. All I could get out of my mouth was 2 hours. And then I walked away, and I tried to calm down, and that's the advice, to calm down and try to reflect on the conflict, think about what you're going to say, and it was very, very difficult for me. What I had to get to was the point where I was able to make the commitment to trust the skills. And I think of it as like white knuckling it, like I had to hold on really tight and buckle in my seatbelt and say, you know what, these skills have worked in the past. They're going to help us get through this. I don't know why on earth he could be so inconsiderate and uncaring to tell me no when I almost never ask for anything in that way. And so even though I had great difficulty being willing to see his point of view, I buckled myself in with the
White-knuckled it.
And said, I'm going to do this. So I took that 2-hour timeout, came back, and we sat down. And I was the first one to express, because of course I had the feelings about it. So Don did such a good job of listening with empathy. There was about 45 minutes of it. And I got to the point where I was able to admit, you know, like, when was the last time you ever heard me say something like, oh, just do this for me, please? You know, I always have to have good reasons, and it's not nice to ask for something just for you. You know, those sorts of things sometimes operate in me. And because he did such a good job listening with empathy to me, when he asked for a turn, I was able to say, you know, he's done that for me, I can do that for him now. So I gave him the stick, and he was able to talk about his point of view. And I learned some things that I had no idea was going on inside of him. Do you remember why you, and what was going on inside of you?
I felt pressured. And the more I get pressured, the more I want to shut down and kind of regain control. Somehow that's important to me. So, guy coming up to the window telling me, Alex pressuring me, do it for me. It was almost like I just had to draw a wall and say, no, I'm not going to let all these outside people control me. I'm going to figure this out on my own.
And I was able to hear that and say, you know, you're different. You had something going on different inside of you. And the good news to me was, it wasn't, you know, being uncaring towards me and having a terrible attitude towards me, which I had thought was going on. I learned that he's got a different way of doing things. And when I was pushing him and asking again and again, it felt like pressure to him. So we ended up having a couple talk where the leaf fell deeper and deeper, to the point where we actually were able to work out a solution and figure out what to do when those times come up and I realize we need to make a quick decision, and I have an idea in mind and he does not want to make a quick decision. So we've worked out some signals between the two of us and ways to manage that when it comes about the next time. So I just wanted to say that as an encouragement to you, that really, once you get practice at this, no matter what the issue is, buckle yourself up and trust the skills, because they're going to take you all the way through.
But it must be safe. There can be no snide remarks, no pretending to listen, but being sarcastic. You've got to play it straight. Other times, in a discussion or in a conflict, you need to move to the second part, which is where you come to a solution. You understand each other, you've had a couple talk, but you need to make a decision. One or both of you need to change a behavior. That's what we're going to focus on now. Finding the win-win-win. Win for me, win for you, and win for the marriage. Win for the relationship. Keeping us together, connected, on the same team. And it's possible. And we're going to give you 4 steps to do it.
And what we're going to be doing is working through what we call the agreement worksheet. We're going to be building it step by step, and it's the steps that you will use when you set up a solution for yourself and work out the details that you need to put the solution into action. So the first step is identify each other's core concerns. What has happened is you learned a lot from each other during your couple talk. And each of you will have some core concerns that emerge from that. There are things like feelings, there are desires, there are concerns. The idea is that to ask the question, what would need to be in the solution to make you happy? Or what would need to be in the solution to make you feel satisfied?
Each partner identifies the other's core concerns. The ability to name your partner's core concerns and be willing to try to meet them, that's a good test to see if you're ready to move to part 2, the problem-solving part. So let's go back to that example from the previous session about the couple with frustration over their finances. Think about their core concerns. What were the husband's core concerns? What were the wife's? we've filled out their core concerns on a chart, and we'll do a demonstration of how that dialogue might go for that couple. And in this part 2, there isn't a summarizing back with empathy. Here it's the much more natural conversational style as you discuss coming to a solution.
So we'll demonstrate how they would say it, and I won't use an expression stick. We're just going to talk naturally. So I would say, Don, from what I remember of the couple talk, it seems like your core concerns are, budget pressure and wanting to work as a team on this issue.
That's right. That's what it was. That's the desire to have us work together on this.
And then what I would do is write down Don's core concerns in the box. I write his core concerns. So now it's his turn to name my core concerns.
And your core concerns are you want to be secure financially.
Yeah, that's one of them. I also don't want to feel blamed about the financial situation that we're in.
So another part of your concern is that you don't want to be held responsible for our financial struggles. You don't want to be blamed as though it's all your fault.
Right. That would be something I'd want you to put down on the chart.
Okay.
And so what Don would do would be write down my core concerns.
So in your workbook, we'll now have you do the exercise identifying core concerns. Think back to your couple talk in the previous session on a minor problem. What were your partner's main concerns, needs, desires? What is it that they really wanted? What needs to be in the solution for your partner to be satisfied?
And to refresh your memory, you can look over the notes that you wrote about your partner's point of view from the previous session. Remember, we asked you to write down some notes to remember their point of view. You can refer back to that.
And in the exercise, you'll name your partner's core concerns to them. You'll tell them your core concerns are, just as you saw Alex and I do. And if your partner says, yes, that's right, and there are no other core concerns, then you write your partner's core concerns in the box for them. Okay? Then trade places, and the other will do the same.
And what we'd like you to do is let's have you choose the men's workbook, because you're going to build an agreement worksheet that's only one worksheet. So we'll choose the men's worksheet so both of you work on the same worksheet.
So don't rush this part. If you need to add a core concern that didn't get handled in the earlier couple talk, then go back to part 1 and have a couple talk about that. Be sure that it's there. Remember the iceberg image. If you don't do that, then you're only going to be making a solution with part of the whole problem, and you want to get it all. You'll have several minutes to name each other's core concerns, so turn your chairs toward each other and ready to go.
Turn knee to knee with your partner and start the exercise.
You're halfway there. start wrapping it up. There's 1 minute remaining.
Okay, we'd like you just to stay right where you're at, and we'd like to have you mark in your workbook the answers to the questions there. Did you remember all of your partner's core concerns, or did new ones come up, and what did you do about them? So go ahead and mark in your workbook now.
On your own, complete the quick debrief.
Okay, we'd like to hear from you. Was that helpful, identifying your partner's core concerns? Did you discover there were more concerns that came up? How was it, Callie?
Yeah, that was actually really helpful. We ended up identifying the biggest concern that I have, and it actually hit home with Bobo.
Well, it clarified it a lot more.
Yeah.
And it was a new realization or something you had talked about in your dialogue?
It was actually a new realization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But perhaps because of the couple talk, you got to the point where you recognized, there is something here that I want to name. And so what was good was you named it, and he understood it, and then which of you wrote down that core concern? No, it was your core concern, Kelly?
It was my core concern, yeah. But he agreed with the concern. Like, I think he almost has the same concern as well.
Yeah.
So what you would have done is then both of you probably would have written that core concern. Bobo, you would have written Callie's core concern, and then Callie, you would have written Bobo's. So remember, you are writing your partner's core concern. It really helps you prioritize their core concerns as we work towards a solution.
It's key to take what you learn from your couple talk, remembering what's important to your partner, and building that into your solution.
So we're going to continue building the agreement worksheet, and we'll cover step 2 now. Come up with a basic plan. What you'll be doing is finding a general agreement that meets both partners' core concerns. And there's a number of ways to do this. If you look in your workbook, we've written a few. To devise a basic plan, one of the things you might do is brainstorm. And you're all probably familiar with that. You just list all possible solutions you can think of. Don't worry about whether it's too costly or it's even very possible. You just could get a scratch piece of paper and list all those possible solutions, and then look over them and consider the pros and the cons, and consider which ones meet your core concerns the best.
Another is consider compromises. And in compromise, we want you to try to be creative. It's easy to think of compromise as 50-50, and we want you to do better than that. Often, with creativity, you can come up with a solution that is 80-80 or 90-90, and much more satisfying for both.
Right. For example, if I like the bedroom really warm, really hot, like I like it at 90 degrees, and Don likes it at 60 degrees, if we decide to split the difference, that's 75 degrees?
It is. Good job.
And I'm not going to be happy with 75.
It won't be good for me, no.
So now we're in a 75-degree bedroom, and neither of us are happy. So that's not what you want to work towards. There are a lot of ways for me to get what I want, warmth, and him to get what he wants, coolness. and have us be in the same bed. So I'd like to hear from some of you. What suggestions would you have for us to get, for both of us to get what we want?
Jennifer.
You could possibly set it to 60 degrees and then invest in a heating blanket.
Great idea.
Right, and some of these heating blankets have dual temperature controls. Simple, easy,
Yeah.
right. And then we're both getting more of what we want.
Other ideas might be direct a fan on one person, or one sleeps by an open window, or one wears thermals, the other wears less. Brainstorm together to find possible solutions. It's not just 50-50. You don't have to just split right in the middle. You can figure out creative ways to give each of us most of what we want.
Right, and there are other suggestions too. Perhaps it's a task that you could share together. Perhaps the solution might involve like a trade-off. For instance, we have mentioned that orange motorcycle of Dawn's, and maybe it would be something like, well, you know, you did get that orange motorcycle, and I think I've been wanting to get another puppy. So maybe you getting the orange motorcycle might mean that you're kind of more open and willing for me to get another puppy.
But I already have the motorcycle.
Right, and it doesn't quite work in this example, but I was trying to think of something quick.
So as you begin suggesting basic plans, say what you agree with about your partner's idea before you say what you'd like to change and make different. So let's think about this financial example that Alex and I are demonstrating. What kind of basic plan might meet both of their concerns? So we'll do it as a dialogue. I'd like to suggest that we come together and make a budget that fits for both of us, that we both agree to and commit to and are willing to stick with. And I'd like to do it together with you so that we're both in agreement and it works, so that we're working as a team.
Yeah, that sounds good to me, because I see it that it helps meet both of our interests in handling the financial pressures. And you know, as working together with you would help me not feel blamed. So I see it meeting both of our core concerns. So you notice that we didn't do it in the formal couple talk structure where we held an expression stick. We just kind of talked about solutions and proposing solutions, and if I wanted something different, I might have adjusted it a little and suggested something different.
Mm-hmm. And so in that box where it says basic plan, we would write, review the budget, come to agreement, work together. Just simple. It's a broad single sentence that describes what it is that our basic plan is going to be.
Then we go to step 3, and that is working out the details. What if we come up with a basic plan, and then one day Dawn turns to me and asks,
have you done the budget yet?
well, I thought you were going to do that.
No, you were going to do the budget.
No, it was on that basic plan thing.
It's your thing to do budgets. Why would I take over the budget?
Well, yeah, but you were the one who wrote it out there.
We're supposed to be working together.
So you see what happens? Coming up with a basic plan is not the end of coming up with a solution.
Without careful planning, that plan might not happen. So we'll identify all the details that need to happen for this to work. Who will do what? When will they do it? Where will they do it? How? We get very specific about it and put it in our agreement on paper using the agreement worksheet. Here's an example of what their agreement worksheet would look like. And note, if there's a change of habit, if there's a new behavior that's part of the specific details, put a check mark at the end. You see there's a spot for that. We'll explain more about that in just a bit. Some examples of details that might go in this couple's agreement are, let's agree to make the budget up, and I'll make the budget up and I'll have it ready for Saturday morning, and on Saturday morning we'll meet together at 9 o'clock and we'll have a budget meeting and we'll have a conversation about what our budget looks like. We'll have it in front of us and we'll be able to do it. And then She could respond and say, well, that'll be fine, but groceries are always a variable. We don't know how that's going to work out. So my suggestion is that I do a check back for the last month or two on our groceries, and I'll bring a number that kind of reflects an average for grocery expense.
Right, and maybe then they decide that they're not going to spend more than $100 without checking with their partner first. So they write that down as an agreement, and it might be something that they have to build as a habit because they're not used to doing this.
So you see all the specifics in those details, and you write them down on the worksheet. Who is doing it, what it is they're doing, and if there's a habit change, put a mark there. Next is special circumstances. Now is the time to think about what could get in the way of your plans and to plan alternative solutions. For example, what if I tried to call Alex when I had a $150 purchase and she didn't answer her phone? What are we going to do in that case? Do I have to put the stuff back, or do I go ahead and buy it? So agree ahead of time. How are you going to manage a special circumstance like that?
So the final step is to set a date to evaluate how your solution is going. What happens is, often we come up with a great solution. For example, Don and I might say, well, let's take our dogs down to the beach twice a month. And we do it that month, we do it twice, and then it's the holidays, Christmas holidays, and we say, well, no, we can't do it that month. And January comes around and it's cold, and before you know it, it's June, and we say to ourselves, didn't we have some good idea about enjoying ourselves at the beach? And what happens is we just forget about our solutions when life gets in the way. So we've already built in planning for those special circumstances and coming up with an alternative to that. But this final step really ensures that you're going to keep this solution alive in your relationship.
So set a date to evaluate how the plan's going. Adjust it. Make it more, make it less. Do whatever you have to do to tweak the plan. It's not etched in stone. You're not stuck for life once you agree with the plan. So you set a specific date to come back and talk about it together so that you can both be sure that it's the solution you want. And if you need to do some things to make it better, then make it better.
So what you've done is built an agreement worksheet that's going to build a powerful solution that you're most likely to implement and continue through your relationship. And it turns out that it's a win-win-win. It's a win for you because your core concerns are being met. It's a win for your partner because theirs are being met. And then it's a win for your relationship because both of you are getting more of what you want, and you realize you were able to do it by working together. So that's the win-win-win. So now it's your turn to practice, and you're going to turn to the exercise titled Finding the Win-Win-Win. You've already begun building that agreement worksheet because you've identified each other's core concerns. So continue with just natural conversation and work through finding a basic plan, coming up with a basic plan, work through the details. If there's a habit that needs to be changed, make sure to check that mark, work through any obstacles that can get in the way, and set an evaluation date.
Very good.
Go ahead and talk to your partner.
You're halfway done. This is the final minute, so begin wrapping it up.
Turn back to the video. Don and Alex are getting ready to start.
So go ahead and turn in your workbook and mark your response to using this agreement worksheet. There's a bar graph there, so maybe you hated it, or maybe it was helpful or somewhat helpful, or you loved it. And then also mark what times you think it would be useful to use as a couple. So we'll give you a minute to go ahead and do that.
Now take a moment to yourself and fill in the debrief section in your workbook.
Okay, I'd like to ask you, what did you think? You had an exercise where you used the agreement worksheet to come up with a solution on your minor conflict topic. How'd it go? Tia?
This was actually very useful for us, and I think the main point that helped me today was you saying you don't have to necessarily just meet in the middle, because a lot of times as couples we're taught to compromise, which I usually see as like, okay, we'll do a little bit of what you said and a little bit of what I said, but ours was like a completely different solution altogether, which actually worked really well for both of us, but it didn't have to be, oh, we have to lose this thing in order to gain something.
Good. So you were able to work through the agreement worksheet and not feel like you had to give up too much, and both of you get what you want. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sweet. Yeah. Lee?
It was a little different for us because the situation we used wasn't a situation that you had to be very thorough about, like Alex was saying. It was something that we could probably talk through pretty easily.
Yeah.
So, but I could definitely see the tools that we just went over being very useful for some of the bigger problems and ones where we have more pros and cons to go over.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes you don't need the worksheet. Something simple, well, you work it out, bam, you're off and going. Now we'd like you to take a couple of minutes and talk to your partner about that exercise and about how you'd like to use the agreement worksheet in your relationship.
Turn and talk to your partner.
Now there's one last element. We had asked you to mark with a check mark if there was a habit change that was needed. And there's a verse in Philippians. It says, "Not that I have already obtained all this or have already been made perfect, but I press on." And the idea here is that we all have things we may need to change. Sometimes it comes from a solution you've come up with. And out of working through a solution, you realize you have to create a new habit. Other times, it's because you just realize you're a work in progress and you want to progress. You want to do better, and you want to change a habit, a personal habit that you have. And so what we have is the worksheet titled Changing Habits. So I'd like you to turn in your workbook to that. And this is what you would use if your solution, your agreement worksheet, had any check marks, because it means that you need to work through supporting a habit change that your partner needs to make, or changing a habit of your own. And it's also very useful if you want to change a personal habit on your own, to work through what you're going to do to change that habit. For instance, we had a couple talk about a habit that I have of commenting on Don's driving while he is driving. In fact, we have had several couple talks on that.
That's right.
And after that, I became convinced that I needed to change that habit of making a few too many comments on his driving. And I made that a goal. So what we'll do is walk through this worksheet and use my example to illustrate how you could use it. And what it is it's an overall plan to create new habits. First, what you do is you describe your new behavior. You write it down. So I wrote down, no commenting on Don's driving when we're in the car together. And next what you do is you create a plan to develop your new habit. And so What I needed to do was on my own decide what kind of reminders, what kind of support I wanted to choose to support this change of habit that I wanted to accomplish. So one of the things I could have done was set alarms or alerts or objects out of place, like I could have set a coffee cup upside down, or some people do things like put a ribbon on their briefcase or something like that to remind them of the new habit they're trying to build into their life. Another thing you can do is use calendar supports. There's all sorts of new programs out there to send you reminders. I recently sent myself a reminder that said, relax, let Dawn be responsible for driving, don't make comments. So I got that personal reminder. Another thing you can do is reward yourself. It's okay to give yourself a pat on the back when you're accomplishing habit change. So what I have decided is, times when it's challenging and I actually don't make any comments on Dawn's driving, I get to ask for a latte. Let's go for a latte. That's my reward for how I did in the car.
And there's an option to ask for help from your partner. Now, if your partner, in this case, in this example, it's me, keeps telling you about the change you need to make, you shouldn't be saying that about my driving. Why do you keep saying that about my driving? How does that sound?
Nagging?
Yeah, that's nagging, isn't it? And probably that's not going to help too much. You're not going to like feeling nagged. Maybe you're going to feel guilty that you did it again, or you keep doing it. But it doesn't mean that I can't be a part of helping her change that habit if she wants me to be. That's why we say that it's optional. She can invite me to give support to her as she makes a habit change, or she can decide not to. And if she does, she tells me exactly what it is she'd like me to do. I don't say whenever I feel like it, stop doing this, or why don't you try that, or give her my observations. The rule in inviting support from your partner is you tell them exactly what you want to hear from them. You tell them what their reminder will be. And if they give it to you the way you've asked for it, then it's a gift.
Right. So I could choose for Don to remind me before we get in the car about my habit, and I could ask him to support me in that way. But I don't like that idea, so I have chosen to ask Don not to say anything. So then we get in the car, and what happens if I make a comment on his driving? What I have done is chosen something that's meaningful to me, that I've asked him to do for me, and he has agreed to do for me, to remind me that I just made a critical comment about his driving.
Now I could just say, oh, there it goes again. There you are talking about my driving. But that's not what you're asking.
Right. And so what I have asked him to do is to reach over. In his car door, he has a bunch of maps. And so I said, just hand me a map if you hear me say something like that. That is that critical kind of comment. So we're driving along, and I don't even realize I'm doing it because, again, this is a new habit I'm building. He hands me a map. And then later on, he hands me another map. And you know what? There have been times he has handed me the whole stack of maps. Sometimes when we're in the parking lot. But what happens for me is it doesn't feel like nagging. In fact, it's kind of funny. Because it just has this meaning of, you know what, he's driving, he knows where he's going, and it had meaning to me. Now, when I asked him at first to do it, what did you think of the idea?
Stupid. Yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah, he didn't think it was a very good idea, but remember, I'm the one trying to change the habit. And it wasn't a terrible thing I was asking him to do, and he was...
No, not terrible.
Right, so he was willing to do it. So that's a regular thing that we do. Today, even today, because I haven't finished yet. I'm still that work in progress.
In Proverbs it says, a person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good is a timely word. And doing that for your partner at their request is an apt reply, a timely word. The giving of the map is not verbal, but it's the same concept. I'm doing something that is a support for my partner.
Right, and then finally I can ask for a reward from Don when I succeed. So I've said to him, you know, if we have one of those long drives, we love going out to the desert, and you find that it's been a really good drive and I haven't made any comments about your driving, would you just say to me something like, wow, I really had a great time driving with you. That was really a wonderful experience. Yeah. And so he can say that to me. So those are the things that will help build a new habit for you. And you can ask for support from your partner. You don't have to, because remember, you're the one who's responsible for your own habit change.
Okay, we're going to do a quick exercise. A habit I'd like to change in your workbook. One of you think of a habit you'd like to change. A small habit, it's a personal habit, something that doesn't affect your partner at all or in any kind of a big way. Might be something like you lose things, or you want to cut back on how much time you spend on the computer or in social media sites, something like that. And use the Changing Habits worksheet in the workbook to work through this. And at the bottom part of that, there's a place where you can decide whether or not you'd like to ask for support from your partner. But go through yourself with regard to that habit and answer those questions. Come up with any reminders or rewards that you can ask for from your partner when you succeed. So it'll be one of you choosing a change of habit, and together you'll work through that Changing Habit worksheet. All right? Ready, go.
Go ahead and talk to your partner.
You're halfway done. Turn back to the video. It's time to start again.
Okay, want to pull you back together a little bit. I hope you found some benefit with that Changing Habits worksheet. It's actually a very sweet way you can support your partner. We all have habits we'd like to change and do differently. And how nice would it be if your partner came alongside and was an encouragement rather than a nag? And you can do that using this process. So turn to Cracking the Code to Handling Conflict, Finding the Win-Win-Win. We've learned in this session guidelines to go deeper during your couple talk, avoid solutions in that first part, follow the 4 steps for win-win-win, which is to identify the core concerns, come up with a basic plan, work out all the details, and then set a date to reevaluate your plan. And if new feelings, concerns, problems come up as you're working through your agreement worksheet, you go back and do a couple talk for a little bit longer till you've got that out on the table and including that in your solution.
And now cracking the code in everyday life. You've come up with an agreement, So commit to your new plan. And if your partner doesn't seem to be following through, remember you can ask for a couple talk to discuss your feelings. And remember how you'll be doing it. First, you're going to think about a good in your partner's position. And you're going to use a soft approach. It's going to sound something like, you know, we had come up with an agreement and I'm starting to feel frustrated that they're frustrated about some of the ways that it seems to be working out. And I'd like to have a couple talk with you about that. Would now be a good time, or when would be a good time to do that?
Now we'd like to go to a couple prayer exercise. So I'll ask you to scoot your chairs close together. And if you'd like to hold hands, feel free to do that. You don't have to, but feel free to do that if you'd like. You've discussed a minor problem, talked about feelings, concerns, things that bothered you, put it all out on the table. Then you moved on and talked about an agreement, come up with a plan of what you're going to do to resolve that. Let's take that minor problem and your solution to God. And again, I'll give you prompts, and we'd like each of you to pray silently. I'll pause so that you can have that time to pray silently. So join me in prayer. Ask for God's help on this problem. Ask for His help in your hearts as you work through issues. Ask for God's help in using these skills in your lives. Ask God for His help in your relationship with Him. And ask God for His help in your relationship with your partner. Lord, you know our hearts, and you know the conflicts that come up in our relationships from time to time. And it's hard for us sometimes not to be selfish. So we ask for your touch, the touch from your Holy Spirit, to empower us and enable us to put aside our own desires and think about what's good for our partner. Be willing to give. You promised to be there to help us grow and help us be the kind of people that you want us to be, and we're asking for that help. Be with us and help us grow. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, now I'd like for you to turn your chairs knee to knee. We're going to do a partner appreciation. This is where you tell your partner something you appreciate about them. They will summarize back with empathy using the you form, and then your partner will tell you an appreciation, something about you that they appreciate, and you'll summarize back for them. So turn your chairs. We'll give you just a couple of minutes for that.
Get knee to knee with each other and start the exercise.
There's 1 minute left.
Time's up. Excellent job. Let's turn back towards Don and Alex.
So this session finishes the second part of problem solving. It was titled Finding the Win-Win-Win.
And next week, we'll continue cracking the code to handling conflict with moving beyond I'm sorry.